Everyone, welcome to another lesson. And in this lesson, we are going to start talking about a very important aspect of JavaScript, which is called JavaScript Functions. In the previous lesson, we talked about bitwise operations in JavaScript, where we were able to examine three different types of bitwise operators in JavaScript: the AND, the OR, and the XOR. So, operators in JavaScript. And then we talked about the fact that these bitwise operators, they are important for the purpose of doing things like graphics, compression, and file level applications, or applications that involves you work with low level, programming where binaries are needed. So this was the discussion of the last lesson. And in this particular lesson, we will examine the functions in JavaScript. Functions are fundamental building blocks in hot programming. So it does not matter whether you are learning JavaScript, you are learning Java, you are learning PHP, or any other sort of programming language. Functions are fundamental building blocks in all of them. So the function, the this particular topic that we're talking about, the JavaScript functions itself is not only peculiar to JavaScript, it is something that is peculiar to all forms of programming languages. So functions are a usable block of code designed to perform a particular task. And so you might ask that if this is not peculiar to JavaScript, what is function? What does a function, does in a context of development or a program? So it's stated here that functions are a usable block of code, which means that you can reuse them. Just like when you have a variable that you can use in any part of your program, especially if it is not a block scope variable that is always available at any point in your program. So the same way you use variable in different places is the same way you can use functions as a reusable block of code performing a particular task. Functions are executed when they are called or invoked. So the way you use functions in JavaScript or in programming generally is that they are executed when you call them or invoke. So call or invokes, they are the same word. So they are simply saying that when you refer to that particular functions that you want to execute, or you want it to, perform the task that has been assigned to it, that is what the aspect of call or invoked means in JavaScript. Now, functions are defined with the function keyword, followed by the function name, followed by parentheses, and followed by brackets. I just want you to pay attention to this four aspect of defining a function. A function is defined with the function keyword. So, which means that when you want to define a function, it is required that you define it with the function keyword. So, which means that in JavaScript, function is a keyword, just like we have the other types of keywords like let, const, and a whole lot of them in the language itself, followed by the function name. Then after the keyword, then what name do you want to give to your function? For example, now if you want to define a variable, let name equals to, for example, I want to use my name. Let name equals to Toby. You will see that the let there is the keyword. The name which follow it is my variable name, and the value that I'm assigning to it will be after the assignment operator. So in the case of function, once the function keyword is stated, then you follow it by the name you want to give your function. After that, you open a parenthesis, open and close parenthesis. This is what a parenthesis means in JavaScript. And then you now open and close curly braces. Then inside that curly braces is where you can put the task that you want that functions to perform. The function name follows the naming rules for variables. Optional parameters are listed inside parentheses. So if your function is going to take parameters, which means if it is going to take values, you put those values inside the first parenthesis, which is this one. Code to be executed is listed inside curly braces, brackets. So you can call it curly braces or brackets. So which means that the code that you want to execute, the task you want that function to execute, you put it inside this curly bracket. Function can return an optional value back to the caller. So this basically means that your function might return a value and it might not return a value. So it depends on what you are trying to achieve with that function per time. And here we talked about function invocation. So this is like execution of function or calling of function. The code inside the function we execute when something invokes calls the function. So when you call a function, then it will execute the code or something that you have inside that curly braces. When it is invoked from JavaScript code, when an event occur, for example, maybe you have a function that wants to trigger something, maybe a pop-up or something, when someone clicks a button or in your application, then once you attach a function to such button, when a user clicks such button, it will fire an event. So this is another instance of when a function can be called. The first one is when it is invoked, called from JavaScript code. After you might have written your function, you can call it outside of that function block at the end of it. And the last one is automatically self-invoked. You can also, run some codes in a function in JavaScript that can automatically invoke itself. It can call itself when it is needed or when it is time for it to be invoked. The bracket operator invokes the function. So when you want to invoke a function, you use the bracket operator here and then the name of the function and whatever it is that you want to. If it is a function that has optional parameters, you pass it in into this bracket. And if it is a type of function that does not have any optional parameters, you just call it with this bracket operator that you can see on my screen. So let's just take a look at what this means in our code editor. So I bring up my code editor and pull up my this as usual, my JavaScript HTML documents, and then give it JavaScript functions, and then I'll give it a short heading, JavaScript functions, and a short paragraph and say functions are fundamental building blocks in programming. So, and then I will make a simple script tag so that I can demonstrate functions in JavaScript. And then I will just make put the function keyword like it has been said there. What name do I want to give the function? My function. Then the braces, the brackets, right? And then the curly braces. Then inside here, I can do something like I can pass a variable equals to 2 plus 9, return sum. So the semicolon is optional. If I don't want it, I may not put it. And then this is how to invoke it. You call that function name outside, pass in the bracket, and then you pass in the you put, since we don't have optional parameter here, you just call the function name with this bracket to invoke it. Then let me assign it to a variable, let result. Because if I leave it like that, it will not give me any return or any output. It is the reason why I'm assigning it to a variable so that I can now use that variable to output the result of that function. And then here I call results. And I think I should get a response. What is wrong? Okay, let me inspect to see what is wrong. Unexpected on HTML line 14. Where is this coming from? Okay, function, my function, yes, this is correct. Okay, let me do this. Return equals to Is there anything changing? No. Let me refresh. Sorry. I was supposed to refresh. That was the issue. So there was nothing wrong with the code itself. So it was the browser thing. So look at it now. So I called the function keyword. I then added a function name and then the brackets and this curly braces. Then inside this curly braces is where I put the code to be executed. So I just basically I am adding this 2 plus 9 and then I'm returning it and then I'm calling the function outside of this uh, code block here and I'm assigning it to a variable. And so I'm outputting the result of that function assigned to a variable here and you can see 2 plus 9 is 11. So this is how you declare functions in JavaScript. And you can see that if I move into any part of my code, I can easily use these functions that I've declared here just by calling its name the way I invoke it here and it will give me the correct output. So this is how you work with functions in JavaScript. In the next lesson, we'll continue to dive deeper into the aspect of functions in JavaScript. Thank you, and I'll see you then.